Every stitch of information that I've learned from self-improvement has succeeded in teaching me one thing above all else. It's helped me a lot, and I'm confident that I can do that for you as well. And then a little bit later, we'll look at how to actually put this into our lives and like what does this actually look like? Very easy, very simple ways to implement this. Most people hate change, at least when it's outside of their control. Yet all of us can think of at least one or two things that we wish were different about us. So we peruse the bookstores and watch how-to videos, sometimes even if the only thing we want to change is how we feel in that moment. The lure of change, even for a short time, driving us further and further, until hopefully we achieve the outcome we desire. Perhaps the most skilled man at helping create behavioral change is Tony Robbins, whose worth is $600 million, because he has found a way to monetize this skill set in a very powerful way. So what is self-improvement actually teaching us? Well, very simply, self-improvement is teaching you how to ask better questions. And it's probably not what you were expecting, so let me go ahead and explain it in a way that makes sense. Whether you realize it or not, our thoughts are composed of asking questions and answering them, which we are mostly unaware of because we've gotten really, really fast at it. Whether you decide to eat a donut, clean your room, or dogmatically argue about nothing at all, your mind is asking a question, like, will eating this donut make me feel better? Or will cleaning my room give me a sense of accomplishment? Or arguing a sense of superiority? And what a belief is, or how a belief is formed, is at some point in your past, you've asked a question about something, and you answered that question. And now, anytime a situation comes up, instead of reevaluating that decision or reevaluating that question, you go straight to the action because you've already identified the answer, so there's no need to reevaluate it. And this is incredibly problematic because a lot of people are making decisions about things in their life that they're trying to change, and they're making these decisions on outdated questions that they answered perhaps years ago. So if you are 20 years old with a high metabolism and you don't care about what you eat because you don't have to worry about putting on weight, you're gonna have a very different set of questions when it comes to food and consumption than you will when you're older and your metabolism slows down and you actually have to worry about that. So if you approach it the same way, you're gonna have problems. And diets and things like that trigger different questions. They spark different change in you. So what self-improvement does is, at least I think, this is how I interpret it, it requires you to ask a new question about things that you answered a long time ago and you just haven't reevaluated. So it forces you to ask a new question, which will therefore, if you ask it repeatedly, get you a new answer. Now this is all terribly abstract, so let me give you an example so that this makes a little bit more sense. If you watch Better Ideas, you may be familiar with
just go and do something, the do something principle.
The do something principle.
This principle says that when you are procrastinating or just don't feel like doing anything, pick something small that you can go do. Something so small that it's almost laughable. And then that sense of accomplishment will fuel you on to do the next thing. So if I'm sitting here being lazy and stuff, the question I'm most likely asking myself without even realizing it is, do you want to be working or do you want to go do something? To which I would answer, no. Now this principle gives me a new question to ask. So for example, that question might be, if I go do something, will that make me feel better? Based on past experience and Joey,
just go and do something.
The answer is yes. And so now that I have a new question, I get a new answer, and therefore I get a new behavior or a new action. And it's really important to identify these outdated questions that we answered a long time ago, and put in new questions based on our circumstances and our situations. And like I said, at first this will need to be done consciously, but with time, these new questions will develop new answers, and that will be adopted as a part of your behavior. When we talk about rewiring or reprogramming your brain or whatever you want to call it, it's basically this. It's basically teaching yourself to ask new and better questions repeatedly so that you get new answers and new behaviors. And doing it often enough that it becomes an unconscious behavior. It becomes something that you simply adopt as a habit or as a personality trait or as a behavior trait that simply happens. You just do it. It's subconscious, it's automatic. And in many ways, life coaching and counseling and things like that, they teach us how to do this. That's a lot of what they do, is they teach us this ability through their example. They help us answer questions that we didn't even know we had, and to identify questions and answers that we've been doing for years that we didn't even know that it was unconscious. We didn't even realize it. That's when a lot of change can happen very rapidly, is when you start identifying these things. And if you ask my friends, they'll tell you that one of the things that gets me just the most excited, the most fired up in life is helping people find answers to questions that they didn't even know that they had. That is my drug of choice. Just watching the light bulbs turn on, and like all of a sudden they're like, whoa, like I didn't even know that I was doing that, or I didn't even realize that this was happening, or this question, and it just like, it is so exhilarating. I absolutely love it. And like I said earlier, it's identifying questions that are wrong or outdated that we've been asking for years. We just never challenged, never re-challenged until, life will make you re-challenge these sometimes. But like pulling it out before that happens and saying, let's look at this. Is this something I need to reevaluate or change? Is this an aspect of myself that I don't like, that I want to mold? Life punishes the vague wish and rewards the specific ask. If you want confusion and heartache, ask vague questions. If you want uncommon clarity and results, ask uncommonly clear questions. And the other really exciting part about this is that we all have the ability to learn this skill and get really, really good at it. It's another way of processing information and molding and shaping who you are and the person that you're becoming, because we're always changing, we're always molding. And the thing with self-improvement that a lot of people don't realize is that it's very personalized. So self-improvement is one of those things that like what works for me might not work for you, and that's really, really frustrating sometimes, because it creates this bounce effect where people are constantly cycling between these people to learn things. Whereas if you can learn this skill, if you can learn how to do this, it's so powerful, because then you begin to come up with things that help you improve as a person, that help you grow and change on your own. And these are things that work for you like 100%, because they're personalized to you. They might not work for Freddie over here, but they'll probably work for you because it's personalized to you. And that's where self-improvement becomes so powerful, because it's an attitude, not an attitude, it's a mindset that you adopt of learning to view yourself through different lenses, from different perspectives, through different people's opinions, and saying, okay, what about from over here? Do I need to change this? Let's pull this out. Okay, what about this? Like, and asking yourself these questions and learning this skill. And it's really difficult at times. Like it's really, really fun, but it's also there could be very challenging and very difficult times of it, because you may pull something out. Maybe you've been burying something very painful for a long time, and you pull that out, and you begin to reassess that and reapproach it, and it's like, it's really, really scary at times, but it's also very empowering. And if you watched my video on skydiving, this is a very similar vein, where it stretches your fabric of reality. Your fabric of like what you see, it requires you to step back and look at it from different angles and see like different depths and like all this stuff. And it's really exciting. How do we do this is the question, because ask better questions is about as vague as you can possibly get. First thing you want to do is find the people that you look up to, that you respect, that you would like to adopt portions of the way that they act or behave, or disciplines that they have, or behavior. Find those people and figure out what questions they are asking. And in doing this, it will let you see the world a little bit through their eyes. And if you're like me and you had no idea where to start with this, I cannot recommend enough this book called Tribe of Mentors by Tim Ferriss. And this book is basically what we're talking about here. He takes 11 questions that he refines that are just phenomenal questions, and he takes them and he goes and asks some of the most successful people in the world at what they do the questions, and you get to read their responses, and it's so empowering and so cool, because you see the world a little bit through their eyes in how they answer these, and it's a great place to start. The chapters are super short, so I usually read like one in the evening, one in the morning. The other resource that I found is also by Tim Ferriss. He has an article on his, or actually it's an ebook on his website, and it's called, I think, 17 Questions That Changed My Life. I'll put a link down in the description if you want to find it. It's free. He's a world-renowned author and a self-proclaimed human guinea pig extraordinaire. So he's got some great stuff if you're interested in that. Next, let's look at some guidelines for questions, because asking questions is actually not that easy. There's different things that it has to fit within to make it a good question. Stuff like what is the meaning of life and all that. You get lost in a sea of ambiguity. It's not constructive. So let's look at what these are. The first one is, can you identify the terms in your question? So if you have a question and you cannot easily understand and easily define what you mean, like the terms in your question, you're not going to be able to find an answer that's going to make much sense. It's just kind of the way it is. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, ask yourself, can the answer of this question be acted upon to improve things? So if your question fails either the first or second of those, then it's not a worthwhile question and it needs to be reworked. What if the train is late tomorrow? That's nothing, you can't do anything about that. So throw that question out and find a better one. Now, if you ask the question, what if I'm late to the train tomorrow? That gives you actionable things that you can change. And if you want an exercise or two to put this into practice, because if you don't practice this out, chances are you're gonna forget about it. So if you want, think over your past week and find something that happened or something that you want to reevaluate, and try to ask just a ton of different questions about it. Just bombard it with questions and demand that you see it from a different perspective. And if you really want to see the power of this exercise, every evening before you go to bed, get a piece of paper and write, if I could remember any specific moment from today for the rest of my life, what would it be? And if you ask this question, you will end every single day with gratitude. Question of the week is this: if you could do anything with a 100% guarantee of success, what would it be? Comment down below. You'll find my answer down there, and hopefully I'll see your answer.